What do Christians mean when they say God is love? Is God just loving, or is love a part of who he is? If God is love, where do we see it in our lives? First John chapter 4, verse 8 reads, God is love. I think this puts up a really big question that I'm going to try to answer in this video. How can God be love? We see suffering. We see tragedy. So I'm going to talk about that today. To start, I think it does not say that God is loving. It says that love is not just a part, the essence of God himself. And this can be hard to grasp from a human standpoint because we can experience loving things, loving acts, but that is just a part of what love is. That is just a part of us. But God is not just partially loving. He is love itself. Just like how light naturally flows from what the sun is, love naturally flows from who God is. God does not try to love. It naturally emerges from who God is. So then it begs the question, how can God be loving? And we see this in the Trinity. And I know the Trinity is very hard to grasp and understand. But just because you can't comprehend it does not mean you can't apprehend it. Just how you can't completely understand the ocean and all its wave patterns does not mean you cannot apprehend that there is an ocean there. So we see this in the Trinity. And anyone who says that the Trinity is fixed or solved, I think is lying. They may not be. I don't know. But we see mysteries in our daily lives on earth. So why should we not expect that with God? The Father loves the Son, and the Son loves the Father, and so on. So love is given and received. And we see this within the Trinity. So God is loving eternally outside of time and before humans. So then why create humans? It can be hard to understand sometimes because it doesn't feel like we don't feel God's love, which is understandable. I don't feel God's love all the time. I don't think anyone feels God's love all the time, but we can see it. Because God did not need to create us. I think about it as a really good chocolate bar that there's infinite amount of chocolate bars. That's what God does with his love. He wants to give his love to us because he knows how good it is. He wants to give it out to all of us and give us the opportunity to come and know him. Many people would then move on to say, if God is love and loving, and this love is so good, why would he not force it upon us? Because love is not something that we earn. It's a gift. But with gifts, you can choose to accept or deny that gift. So when you force that gift, when you force that love, that is not love, because that, by definition, is not what love is. Love is something that you choose to do. You choose to love your spouse. You choose to love your parents. You're not coerced into doing it. So even if God wrote on every molecule in the universe that God exists, made it as obvious as he could, he showed up in the sky every day, whatever you want, that would not mean to reach God's goals, because God does not merely want us to believe that he exists. We read that even the demons know that. But he wants us to come and know him. And that's how we see his acts of love. where we can come to know him and how we can come to know him. Another hard thing to grasp would be, if God is so loving, why would he allow suffering? I think it's one of the hardest questions for Christianity, but I don't think atheism or any other belief answers it as good as Christ does. Because when we see all this suffering in the world, because it's undeniable that there is suffering, we have to ask ourselves, is there a God who we can trust with it? And that's who we see in Jesus. Someone who's not indifferent, but someone who goes through all the things, all the sufferings. And I'll get into that later. But would it be a good parent if they got rid of all the hardships in life? Would it be a good parent to get rid of all the challenges for their child to face? No. Because then they'd build a weak, unhealthy, dumb child who doesn't know how to handle anything. And God does not want that for us. He wants us to be able to build virtues, builds our strength, and become better humans. So he gives us challenges that we can handle so that we can come to build those virtues. And a lot of times it can feel like these challenges, these sufferings are forever. But when we read that suffering, this death is not the end, we see this with Jesus' resurrection, I think that's a lot better answer than what any other worldview has to offer. Because it does not say that suffering and these evil acts in the world get the final word. It says that the good will win, justice will prevail, and mercy can be given, because mercy is either given or justice is given. And both of those are good things of God's nature. I'd prefer the mercy, but some people don't. And lastly, many people think that God being loving contradicts with him being a judge. And I'll give another analogy to help you guys visualize it. A just judge is admitted into a court where there's a criminal, and he's just, so he sentences them to jail. But would that judge be loving? No, because a loving judge would not want them to go to jail. So that judge can't be loving and just. So then there's a judge who's loving and just, but then they say, I love you, therefore you don't have to go to jail. Nope, like case dismissed. We'd call that judge a corrupt judge. But what God does is, because he's loving and because he's just, he loves us, so he doesn't want us to take that punishment. So he takes it upon himself. Justice is put on himself. So justice is kept and love is kept. I think we see the loving acts of God in our everyday lives. And the first one I would say is creation, that we were created in the first place. He created us so that he could love us. And I think evidence of his love is our very existence, because when you really dig into it, when you ask, what is holding my house up? The wood. What's holding the wood up? The ground. What's holding the ground up? Gravity. What's holding gravity together? Ultimately, God. So the very existence of you, that you have not split into a million billion particles, is evidence that God is fully focused on you and fully loves you. Because whenever he stops thinking about you would be when you cease to exist. We see God's patience so much in our life. We see it in Noah, Abraham, Israel, and I think most importantly would be us. Because God is patient with us. When we sin, when we fall short, he doesn't immediately bring that judge hammer down and crush us, because he knows we're imperfect. And he loves us because he doesn't want us to go to hell. He wants everyone to come to him. But not everyone wants to come to him. I think one of the core parts of Christianity is that God doesn't. I think one of the core parts of Christianity is not that God stayed distant to suffering. He was not indifferent to it. We see this in Jesus, where he comes down. He goes through pain, betrayal, and suffering. So when we think that God is not loving for allowing sufferings in this world and not stepping his toe in the water, we're wrong, because he did. He stepped his toe in the water, and I think a lot more than all of us. There's this analogy. I know I'm going through a lot of analogies right now, but they're great and they really help me understand, so I hope they help you understand. A storm goes through an apple orchard. Some trees fall down earlier, some trees fall down later. But when you drive by and you see one tree standing and the rest fell, you'd say, oh, I guess that tree did not really feel the storm. Which I think would be a good time to say that I think we're wrong. If anything, that tree has felt more pain and more suffering than any of the other trees, because it has to live on with that, seeing all the other trees fall, and he stands. And what God does is he chooses to put his toe in the water. Not just his whole toe, not just his foot, but his entire being, because he loves us. What he does is he puts that hand down because we cut our hand off so that we could not reach him. He wants to reach us, but not everyone wants to reach him. Romans chapter 5 verse 8 reads, though we sinned, Christ still died for us. And I think this is crucial to the Christian claim, is that Christ's sacrifice does not only go for the people who want to meet him, but those who also don't. And this is where we see love most, unconditional love, on whether we love him or not. And I think you really see the strength of his love, that it does not die with death, but it overpowers death. Because when you feel that love, it does not feel bound to time. It does not feel like it can die when you feel that. And we see this through Jesus. He beats death. That's how much he loves us. He loves us so much that he would beat death so that we don't have to die. Lastly, I'd like to end on God's love in our everyday life. I feel like a lot of times it can be easy to focus on the negatives in life. That you have homework, you have work. But I think a simple switch in phrasing would really help, and it's really helped me, is that you get to work, you get to do homework, and it doesn't always feel like a privilege, but some people would wish and beg for the problems that you would have, that you have. So we never know what someone else is going through. We never know how much worse it could be. So we should always thank God on how good it already is. We see his forgiveness, we see his grace, and we see his guidance in our everyday life, whether we acknowledge it or not. He is there for us. His hand is there, whether we want it or not. So I think when you look at it in its totality, when you read the Bible and you see God's character, not just in the Bible, but in the world we are living right now, I don't think you can deny that God is love.